Alright everyone, welcome back to another video on Kaiju No. 8 the game, and today we'll be taking a look at a weapons tier list for the brand new Clozer Akari Minase. Obviously she was released with an assault rifle, and so there are a ton, and I mean a ton, of assault rifles in the game. And so today I'm going to be making a tier list for you guys, so you guys know what are the best secondary options you can use if you don't get the signature weapon. Obviously the signature weapon is really good, but not everybody's going to get the weapon. And so today we're going to be talking about the best secondary options, which ones you should use, which ones you might want to use, and which ones you definitely don't want to use. So before we get started, if you're new to the channel and you like watching Kaiju No. 8 content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. We are trying to get to 100 subscribers and we are getting closer every day, so I'd really appreciate it. Alright, so first off, we obviously have Akari's weapon itself, AR Hagrumus, and this is obviously the best weapon for her. It is her signature weapon. You get HP multiplier, and then after the equipped unit activates normal attack or extra attack, you get attack 7%, 2 turns to the equipped unit, max 5 stacks, which is obviously 35%. And then the second passive on it is applies damage dealt, plus 3%, 2 turns to all allies, max 5 stacks, which is a total of 15%. And of course, when I'm talking about these are all going to be the weapons at 0 dupes and level 1. So this is not anything crazy. These are just the weapons as they come. So obviously her weapon's going to be an S tier weapon because it is her weapon and it's literally designed just for her. So the next weapon we have on the list is AR Ginula. And this is Wang Mexing's signature weapon. And this weapon is actually terrible, alright? It is not an S tier weapon, and the reason why it's not an S tier weapon is because it is specifically for DOT characters. It gives you effective hit rate, it gives you lightning damage dealt, it gives you DOT damage dealt, and Akari is none of that. Akari is an HP scaler. She uses her combat skill and ultimate and her passive skill to give allies damage dealt up, extra attack, extra crit damage. And so this weapon has absolutely nothing to do with her. So this is a D tier weapon. Stay away from this weapon at all costs. It does not work for her at all. The next weapon on the list is AR Xmas 25. This is Christmas Akari Minase's weapon. And same deal with this weapon. It is not good for her at all. Again, fire damage dealt, more DOT damage dealt. It is slightly better because you get some damage dealt to the equipped unit, and it's not exactly fire damage dealt, so I guess I'll put it in C tier, but it's still not that good, and I would not recommend using it just because it's not meant for her at all. It is a terrible weapon, and it's really meant for a DOT character like Christmas Akari, which this Akari is not. Alright, so the next weapon we have on the list is AR Arnalock, and this is actually a pretty solid weapon. You get an attack multiplier of 35%, and then after the equipped unit activates normal attack, applies attack 25%, 2 turns to the equipped unit. And then after the equipped unit activates combat skill, applies damage dealt 9%, 3 turns to all other allies. So it's not her, but it's other allies, which is pretty good. I think it's a pretty solid weapon. This is Chester's signature weapon. I'm kind of debating putting it in S tier, but I don't think that it has enough multipliers and enough passives that really are tailored to Akari. So I'm going to say it's a solid A tier option. It's a really good choice, but again, it's not going to be as good as their signature weapon. Alright, the next weapon we have on the list is AR Boreas. And this is Reno's signature weapon. You get crit rate plus 24%, and then after the equipped unit activates combat skill, applies ice damage dealt 8%, 3 turns, and ultimate gauge charge rate 7%, 3 turns to the equipped unit, max 2 stacks. Again, this is a terrible weapon. You do not need crit rate. Akari is literally critting on everything because that's in her kit, and then obviously she is not an ice damage character, so no ice damage. The only good thing about this weapon is that you get some ultimate gauge charge rate after activating that ultimate. But besides that, this weapon is terrible. So a solid C tier weapon. And then we have AR Cronus. This is the one from the Battle Pass. So if you wanted to max dupe this weapon, you would have to buy the Battle Pass a total of 5 times. And I believe it's like $8, $7, so you have to spend upwards of $30, $35 to max out this weapon. This is not really a good weapon, but it's decent. So this weapon has crit rate plus 60%, and then after the equip unit activates combat skill, applies attack 6%, 2 turns to the equipped unit, max 3 stacks. So it's a pretty solid weapon, but just because it's kind of, not free, and it's not that good as it is, I would say it's a solid B tier weapon. If it was free and you didn't have to pay for it, I would probably say A tier maybe, but because you have to pay for it, it is a B tier weapon. It's a decent choice, but I would not really recommend it. And then we have AR Circus. This is another weapon that I believe is available in the Proof of Valor shop, if I'm not mistaken. And this one gives you an HP multiplier plus 28%. Before the wielder uses a combat skill, grants the wielder 12%, 1.2 healing multiplier for 2 turns. After the wielder uses an ultimate, increases all ultimate gauge plus 3. So the ultimate gauge is nice, but it's not too much. Obviously at 1 copy. The HP multiplier is nice because obviously Akari is an HP scaler, and of course that extra HP multiplier, healing multiplier for 2 turns is nice as well. That third passive of the ultimate gauge charge rate is kind of low, but overall it's a decent weapon, so I would say probably an A tier weapon. Again, a decent choice, but nowhere nearly as good as the signature weapon that she comes with. And then we have AR Hyperion. This is another Proof of Valor weapon, and it grants attack plus 28%, and then at the start of the battle, grants all allies plus 4% speed for 3 turns, and then after the wielder uses an ultimate, grants all allies plus 6% attack for 2 turns. This is a very solid weapon. Obviously, the reason why Akari's signature weapon stands out is because you get the extra attack damage. But besides that, this weapon right here is basically on par. So I would probably say this is the only 5-star weapon that is a contender for S tier. Just because the attack plus 28% is really nice for Akari. You could argue kind of, maybe, well see, here's the thing. She's an HP scaler. And so, obviously attack is good for her because she does have attacking, skills, but since she's an HP scale, you probably want the HP multiplier. I really want to put this one in S tier, but I think I'm going to put it in A tier, just because you get the attack multiplier and not an HP multiplier. If it was an HP multiplier, I would definitely say S tier, but because it's attack, I think it is a solid A tier weapon. And then we are moving on to 4-star options. AR Hound 64 gives you an attack multiplier plus 23%, and then after the equipped unit activates combat skill, target an ally, applies speed plus 4%, 2 turns to all allies. Again, it is another attack-based weapon, and so since she's an HP scaler, this is not going to be the best. And then you only have 1 passive with her since it's a 4-star weapon, and it's not the greatest thing. It's only speed plus 4% to all allies. Obviously, it's nice that it's all allies, but it's only speed. It's nothing too crazy. So I would say that this weapon right here is a solid B tier weapon. Halfway decent option, probably better than AR Cronus, but I really wouldn't recommend using it unless it's your only option, especially because it's a 4-star weapon. And then we have AR Squid 62. This is the weapon that came with, I think, Mina or somebody else. It was a game day 1 weapon anyway, but you get a defense multiplier of 28%, and at the start of the battle applies damage taken reduction 5% 3 turns to all allies. This weapon is trash. First of all, it's a defense scaling weapon, which is not good. Obviously, that's not good for Akari. And then you only get this passive to activate the damage taken reduction at the start of the battle, which is not that good because it only happens 1 time in the entire game. So I would actually say this weapon is D tier just because of that defense scale. If this was HP scale, they'd put it in C tier, but I think it's a solid D tier weapon. Avoid this weapon at all costs. And then we have AR Honeybee 84. This is the weapon that is very good for 4-star Akari Minase, and surprisingly, it's actually really good for this Akari too. You get an HP multiplier of 28%, and then before the equipped unit activates ultimate, applies healing multiplier plus 21% to the equipped unit. So, here's the thing about this weapon. You don't get any damage dealt or extra attack damage from it like her signature weapon, which is a bummer, I will admit that. But you get that HP multiplier, and before the equipped unit activates ultimate, applies healing multiplier plus 21% 2 turns to the equipped unit. Now, obviously, this Akari does heal, but she doesn't heal as much as, like, for example, 4-star Akari. Her healing is a little less just because she does damage and she heals, so healing and damage kind of mix together. It's not just a bunch of healing, it's a little bit of both. And so I think this is a great weapon. A great 4-star option. I wouldn't say it's S tier just because you don't have any extra damage dealt or extra attack damage dealt, but I think it is a solid A tier option, and behind AR Hyperion, I would say this is probably your next best option. Next, we have AR Panther 33. This one gives effect res plus 17%, and then after the equipped unit activates ultimate, applies damage dealt plus 6% 2 turns to all allies. The effect res is terrible. The ultimate, applying damage dealt plus 6% is nice, but again, because that's effect res, it's just really not that good. And because of that, I think it's a C tier weapon. And then we have AR Narwhal 59. This one gives you attack plus 20%, and the equipped unit's combat skill damage dealt plus 21%. Obviously, this weapon is terrible. I would not recommend using this weapon at all. It's attack based, and the only multiplier you really get as a passive from it is damage dealt to the character, not any other allies. So I would avoid this weapon at all costs. This is a D tier weapon. And then we have AR Link 75, which gives attack plus 28%, and then after the equipped unit activates normal attack or ultimate, applies damage dealt 21% to the equipped unit. I would say that it's decent because you get the attack multiplier as opposed to defense or effect res. But again, the other passive on this weapon does not give any damage dealt or extra attack damage dealt. And so I think it's a little bit better than D tier, so probably a C tier weapon, but I still would not recommend using it. And then we have the AR Allosaurus 77. Now, surprisingly, this is the weapon that came out with Hakuwa. And I did some research and I did some digging, and this weapon is not available in the gacha. And so, if you didn't participate in the last event, the last special event with Juro Igarashi and her sister, and you didn't get this weapon from the gacha, or you didn't play the event at all, you do not have this weapon. It is a limited weapon, limited 4-star weapon, which is crazy. I think it's the first 4-star limited weapon in the game, and so obviously not everybody's gonna have this. So for what it does, it gives defense plus 23%, and then before the equipped unit activates combat skill, applies healing multiplier plus 12% 2 turns to the equipped unit. And even though this is a limited weapon, technically, it's not that good. Obviously, defense scaling is like for Akari, and then the healing multiplier is literally lower than AR Honeybee. So this is a halfway decent weapon, but I would say it is probably C tier at best. I would not recommend using it. And then finally, we have what's this weapon? I think, wait, no, this is AR Octopus. No, AR Octopus 58, and then what's this weapon? This is AR Allosaurus. So I'm sorry, I had one of these on here twice. So solid C tier weapon. So that pretty much wraps up the tier list. Obviously, Signature Akari's weapon is going to be your best bet. Beyond the shadow of a doubt, it's obviously designed for her because of the extra attack damage and the damage dealt for all allies. It is just a really great weapon. But if you don't get that weapon, I would say the second best option is going to probably be AR Honeybee or AR Autolock. With AR Honeybee, you're getting that HP multiplier and that healing multiplier. And then with AR Autolock, you're getting the attack multiplier, and then after you activate your normal attack, you get attack plus 25% to the equipped unit, and then after the equipped unit activates combat skill, applies damage dealt 9%, 3 turns to all allies. Both these weapons I just mentioned are very accessible. The AR Autolock is Chester's weapon, and if you've been playing the game for a long time, I'm assuming you probably have at least one copy of this. And of course for AR Honeybee, you should be having this weapon maxed up, since it is 4-star. If you don't have either of those weapons, another pretty solid choice, I would say, is going to be the AR Hyperion. Sorry, AR Hyperion is perfect value. And so if you don't have Chester's weapon and you don't have AR Honeybee at max dude, this is another decent choice. You get the speed buff when you start the battle, and of course, when you use an ultimate, you grant all allies plus 6% attack for 2 turns. So at the end of the day, Akari's weapon is the best. Second best, in my opinion, is going to be the AR Autolock, and then the third best is going to be AR Honeybee. So that pretty much wraps it up for the weapons tier list for the new Clozer Akari Minase. If you found this video helpful, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you made it to the end, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Have a wonderful day.